Hi there berries, welcome to my Diablo 4 fire build. In this build we're going to be looking primarily at the abilities Hydra and Incinerate and how we can use other abilities and legendary passives in order to boost the amount of damage coming from Incinerate as much as possible, while also keeping the mana costs down and our survivability still there, as we'll be standing still for quite a long time. If you haven't already, I've already made a frost build and I will plan on doing a lightning build as well, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, check out the other videos underneath. I'll be putting the other frost build, frost ice build in the description, and also the lightning build when that's complete. Now this is on the Diablo 4 beta, this is up to 25, so hopefully this will give you a taste of what the potential is of a fire build when you get into endgame. First we're going to be talking about the talent points we're going to be picking up, and then we're going to be talking about some of the legendary items I have to increase their damage, and then we're going to be showcasing the Incinerate build in a dungeon afterwards, and then we'll go through a lot of the things that are happening. So under the skills, we've already put the points in, so I'm just going to go through them. So we've got the Firebolt, and then we're going to move down into the Flickering Firebolt in order to get the 2 mana regeneration when hitting a target that's already burning with your primary attack. That's going to be helpful on bosses, because the bosses, especially the bosses on the end of the dungeon, you won't be able to use your Incinerate for the entirety of the time, because you will eventually go out of mana, so this will help you get your mana back up. Going into the core skills, which is your right click, we're going to be taking Incinerate. Luckily one of my armor pieces also has an rank up on Incinerate, so we've got this at 6 out of 5, but if you don't have that you'll be maxing this up to 5 out of 5. And then we're taking, of course, the Enhanced Incinerate, which will, while channeling Incinerate, you burn enemies around you for 15% of damage per second. And then we have the Greater Incinerate. Every 4 seconds an enemy has been hit by Incinerate, they are mobilized for 1 second. Now that links up with something else a little bit later on. So we go into Fire Shield here. One note here is that if you have defensive ranks on all of the defensive abilities, you can get away here. You might have noticed I've got a point in Ice Armor, but you can save a talent point or two by having Teleport and Ice Armor available to you from gear rather than actually putting the points in, because we're not going to be going into the off branches here, but we do want to put a point in Flame Shield. And then we're also going to want to have the Enhanced Flame Shield, where it increases our movement speed while active, and into you gain 25% mana cost reduction while Flame Shield is active. That's going to keep the mana cost of Incinerate at the start when you're using it a little bit lower, which we're definitely going to need. Moving into the Conjuration, we're going to be taking Hydra. Hydra is a really good single target damage dealer, and also burns the enemy. Make sure you cast this when you're healthy, which is above 80% HP, in order to get an extra Hydra head, which then increases the damage even further of it. And then we're going to go into Summon Hydra, also burns enemies for an additional 12% of its spell base damage for 6 seconds. So extra nice burning damage, which will link up again with one of the items that I'll go into in a second. Now we're not actually going to take any of the actual abilities from Mastery for Fire. There's Meteor and Firewall. Now Firewall, Meteor is absolutely garbage right now. You would want potentially uniques to augment this. Basically Meteor takes way too long to land and the radius is incredibly small. Meteor right now is currently no go. Do not take this while leveling up. Firewall is a little bit different. You've got the Firewall is potentially viable if in a group, for lots of AoE, and the enhancement effect makes this kind of interesting, where when an enemy takes burning damage there's a 5% chance to spawn 2 additional firewalls under them. It does create a lot of firewall patterns, but 5% is just slightly too low for my liking, compared to something like Frozen Orb has a 20% chance of spawning, for example, in the Frost Tree. Firewall kind of isn't fantastic. But we will be taking some passives in this mastery tree. So the pyromancy skills that we're using already, when we're healthy, will do 9% increased damage. So that's why we've taken the Fire Shield and the Ice Armor in order to keep ourselves healthy, so we can get that damage boost going forward We've also got Devouring Blaze. You deal 30% increased critical strike damage against burning targets. If they are also immobilized, this bonus increased to 75%. So we're basically, anytime you do a crit, it's going to do 75% bonus damage. And don't forget, going back into the Incinerate, which is over here, every 4 seconds an enemy has been hit, they get immobilized for 1 second. So eventually we will be getting that massive crit damage bonus on that target. Going down into our ultimate, once again, Inferno is a decent-ish ability. It's one of the better ultimate abilities, much better than the Ice Block. Inferno spawns a giant serpent, keeps them all clustered together. It can link up quite nicely with Incinerate, and you could potentially drop out something like Ice Armor to facilitate this. When we get more skill points, that might end up being more likely, because there's quite a few passive nodes here that you're also going to want to pick up if you're doing an Incinerate build, which we don't have access to right now. We've got 3 out of 3 out of Fiery Surge, which basically gives us, when we kill a burning enemy, so all the trash mobs and stuff that we're going to be killing generally, we're going to be increasing our mana regeneration by 30% for 3 seconds, and that's going to help us keep spamming Incinerate. Also, there's something else a little bit later down that we're going to want as well once you get higher level and more access to more skill points. After standing still for 1.5 seconds, which we're going to be doing a lot anyway, your pyromancy skills cost 5% less mana. Now you could shift out 2 points from Fiery Surge into Soulfire. It's up to you. It's up to you how you feel about it, but that is generally the direction. Eventually you're going to want to have 6 points in all of these nodes if you're doing an Incinerate build anyway. Now going into actual legendaries, unfortunately I have not accumulated the most amount of fire stuff, but I will talk about a couple of things. We have the chest piece where when we get hit and we're not healthy, we get a magical bubble which makes us immune to all damage for 5 seconds. So it basically will mean that we can stand still for 5 seconds, just use the health potion, and then we can go back to healthy status and then just laser down still. So this bubble is actually really, really good. And being able to stand in the bubble for 5 seconds, just pump out more damage, particularly against bosses, is really, really nice. Next, we have a 20% increased crowd control duration. So that's going to help particularly against when we immobilize the target. So that's going to give us a little bit of extra duration on that, which means a little bit more damage. Got a barrier there, nothing too crazy. We got a lucky hit here, which won't proc too often, but when we hit a crowd control enemy, there's up to a 50% chance for that crowd control effect to spread to another unaffected enemy. So we can potentially spread the immobilization around, which is kind of funky and nice. One of the biggest ones we're looking at here though is, while enemies are affected by damage over time, more damage over time than the total life, you deal 54% increased burning damage to them. That's a really nice extra DPS increase, because the Hydra and the Incinerate both do burning damage with the selections that we've chosen. This rune will give us 36% more damage to immobilized targets, so once again even more damage to those rooted targets. And then 28% increased damage while we have a barrier active, so the ice armor is a barrier, so that's going to increase our Incinerate damage even further. The staff here, which we're going to be using, does do more damage to crowd control targets. So the staves in this game all have this passive. If you go into the wand, then that has more lucky hit chance. But so an extra 20% damage to crowd control targets once again to those immobilized targets is going to be really nice. I do want to highlight this item here though. Deal 14.4% increased damage for each second you stand still, up to 30%. Now obviously with Incinerate we're going to be standing still a lot of the time, and doing a flat 30% damage after 2 seconds is really, really nice. Unfortunately, if you look at the damage per second on my staff, it is way better than 30%. So we're going to be missing out on a lot of damage if I switch to this, but I wanted to highlight this. You can also get this on wands as well. I did extract one of these from a wand. You can put this on one-handed, two-handed gloves. So if I wanted to maybe shift out of one of these rings or swap out one of these other rings, you could do that in order to enchant another up piece to give you that but it is a really good one that you want to look out for. But we do also have damage ability. We overall won't be missing out too much extra damage. Maybe swapping out the 36% more damage to immobilized targets would probably be the one to go for, because we're only going to be crowd controlling targets around about 20 to 25% of the time, whereas this will basically, you know, the 30% is going to be the damage increase from standing still is definitely going to be more reliable than the immobilization, particularly against in-game bosses. But I wanted to showcase that item just because I think it's a pretty important mention of the one I'm not using. Right, now we're going to go into a dungeon, and we're going to kind of showcase the potential of the actual build itself, of the Incinerate. It's fairly straightforward. It's just whacking down the Hydra before you pull, and then it's just incinerate everything. Use your defensive cooldowns when you need to. It's kind of fun just to laser stuff down, and it's very straightforward. There's no real skill shots or anything you have to worry about, so it's kind of just like if you just I want to say chill, but it's not. It's quite the opposite to chill, isn't it, with it being fire. But it's just a very straightforward build in order for you just to kind of mindlessly killing trash mobs and stuff in particular. So we do have 3 defensive things here. So what we'll do is we'll go to a pack here. We'll pop ice shield, flame shields, just incinerate everything going down. And fairly straightforward, and you can see like the little shoe symbol above their heads means that they're immobilized. Now, because you can see with the build, it's pretty mana intensive, so you will have to use some auto attacks every now and then until you can get more access to more of those skills. But you can use your defensive abilities like the ice shield while you are casting those abilities too, of the incinerate, so you can just kind of keep pew-pewing away. Now, if you remember that item I told you where you're standing still, it increases your damage up to 30%. One of the reasons why we take teleport is because if you're standing still like this, and then you're using your incinerate, and then you teleport, as long as you don't move, it actually keeps that stack up. So it's a really nice way to just move around, dodge a shot in a fight that you might need to dodge out of, but also then keep up that 30% bonus. It's pretty much just flamethrower everything and kill everything. Might be optimal to not necessarily finish off the mobs and let your Hydra do it if it is summoned. That way you don't waste some precious mana. You can also just use your left click just to generate a little bit of mana. Because the Hydra's applying burn, as long as you're left clicking mobs that are burned, then you will be generating an extra 3 mana per auto attack. But you can kind of see the potential of this build. It's very straightforward, but you will want more of those fire passes because this is definitely one of the more mana intensive ones, and we're taking a lot of mana regeneration and stuff anyway. You can definitely pick up a couple of things on items that have like mana cost reduction and stuff. But I think the main way of pulling this is just try and pull the biggest pack as possible. Pop a defensive. I mean, you've got loads of defensive available to you already. And then just go crazy. Unfortunately, the dungeon that we're in is one of those annoying ones where you have to kill every single one. We can't really ignore like the random loose mob like we would normally like to if we were properly grinding out. And we can grab up a few mobs here. Yeah, I'm out of mana, unfortunately. But you can see that the damage is perfectly fine. It's just we would be able to just pump out a lot more if we had access to those mana runes, but it does kind of show you the potential of what Incinerate and a fire build does look like in the late game. By being able to just stand here and just keep pumping. Your flamethrower is would be really nice. But if this place does have a boss, we can definitely showcase how much damage Hydra does, especially considering we don't really have that many points on Hydra. Hydra is a very, very, very good single target fire ability. This one's got increased health, so it's taking a little bit longer to go down, which is pretty annoying. Seem to have spawned some sort of boss. That's terrifying as well, so unfortunately we will end up having to move. Legendary boots. Lucky hit chances increased by 20% while you have a barrier active. Actually, I don't think I've seen that one before. And it's got mana cost reduction as well. 40% movement speed when evading. That's actually not like a bad item at all. Might actually use that, especially with the mana cost reduction. So that's going to make Incinerate go from 20 mana per second down to 19. Oh, but I just lost teleport. Did I just lose teleport? Yeah, I lost 1 rank of teleport. So unfortunately, I could fiddle around with some extra points, but I would lose teleport without that. So I'd have to save on a skill point somewhere else by taking it out for passive, which I don't really want to do. So you can see already, we're trying to like optimize gear already. But yeah, like mana cost reduction, for example, would be really, really good with Incinerate. It saves lots of extra mana. So let's keep progressing through this and let's try and get to the last boss if there is one, which there should be. Gotta remember to use the Hydra ability before using Incinerate. That's the bubble, just protecting us in case we just take a little bit too much damage from not moving. So Hydra, pop some defensives to increase our damage and increase our mana regeneration. So without really having to move, we just killed that elite with no real problem whatsoever. So it's definitely a carefree build. Got a blast wave here, we can grab this and kill some trash to make it to the boss quicker. Definitely a kind of build that most people will probably end up trying. I think in Diablo 3 we had a similar ability. I think it was maybe arcane based, I can't remember. I remember that being quite fun, especially with the there was like a thing that you would change into that would have like this incinerate ability as well, if I remember correctly. That was always kind of fun, just lasering stuff down. Okay, I got fid, quite keep getting fid. It's because this thing's got a terrifying mod on. But I'm excited to see what kind of uniques would also augment the Incinerate. I don't know if there's one that would change the element, but the Incinerate turning into Frost could be really cool. Keep forgetting to do Hydra first, and that's really annoying me. Hydra first, then Incinerate. Let's move out of all of this junk. Hydra, Incinerate! Yeah, we've still got a little bit of extra mana to spare as well. We'll just fully tank that by popping the flame shield and the ice shield. just melt faces. It's just a fun little ability. I wouldn't say it's like necessarily crazy. I think overall Frost, with the amount of control it gives and a bit more damage, I do recommend you check out that build if you haven't already. Does overall with the legendaries I was able to acquire is overall more damage, but I will say you are thinking a little bit more about frozen orb placements, and you are having to be active with more buttons. So if you only really like pressing the, like, you know, we don't only have to press like the shields every now and then mainly just holding down the right click. It's definitely the easiest build to play. Keep burning everything down. While playing hardcore here, so I'm keeping quite close an eye on my HP, but not really that concerned overall. I accidentally right clicked twice, so I used a lot of Incinerate mana there, but getting there in the end. Greed Shrine, so that's going to give us some extra gold when we hit things. Not sure why that priest is immune. I guess we've got to kill the doggos. The good thing about Incinerate as well is because if you're burning multiple targets, your left click is going through straight away. And it does help you catch up on the mana regeneration a bit when we don't have access to those other passives. Oh, we actually completed the dungeon. We didn't actually have a last boss. But that's basically the gameplay loop of Incinerate. I don't really feel like you would want to swap out of the ice armor or the flame shield, since they can basically be cast while you're doing the Incinerate anyway. So it just means you don't have to move. And if you have access to that 30% one standing still, you're definitely going to want to be standing, like, you know, not moving. So we're probably missing like around about 10 to 15% damage off of that. But you can kind of see the potential of the build. And you just stand still, hold right click, and then teleport forward one time maybe, so you don't lose your 30% stack buff. Incinerate again. As long as you got the mana regeneration and the mana cost reduction to kind of keep up with it, especially with some of the passives in the tree, like you know, standing still is going to cost you 15% less mana on all pyromancy skills. So you can see all these things stacking up. We just don't have access to the points right now, unfortunately. So when we do, it's definitely going to be a lot more fun overall to play the Incinerate build. I mean, it feels okay to play right now, but yeah, the mana cost is the main choke point in the build, and it's a common theme throughout all the sorcery builds, I think, because we're low level, we don't have access to the gear that we ideally want at the moment. But that's the fun of Diablo games, but we just don't have access to the extra skill points. I hope this video kind of helps you out in kind of deciding whether or not you want to do like an Incinerate build, or what kind of angle you want to take with this. I do feel like this is probably the strongest build overall to do. Hydra is very, very good. You could potentially opt out into doing like taking points out of Incinerate and put more points in Hydra if you wanted something a bit more single target specialist. Maybe doing instead of Incinerate you could do Fireball, but it's kind of the same theme. Instead of just doing lasers and standing still, you're moving around doing fireballs, which do comparable damage, at least anyway, to the Incinerate. So it's up to you, obviously, what you want to do, but that's basically going to be the gist of Fire. Lots of Hydra involvement for sure. One thing we didn't showcase is the augmentation of the Incinerate. So every 20 seconds a serpent spawns and incinerates enemies for 6 seconds. We should probably actually go out into the world and do that. I did forget about the augment enhancements. I don't think overall it's that crazy of one, but it does increase the damage a little bit more. Those pesky spell enhancements, man. I always my mind always slips when thinking about them after doing a respec. So we'll show you that pesky serpent. There is one for Hydra, where it's like when you cast 300 mana, you get to spawn a 5-headed Hydra. But in terms of like, you can already pretty much spawn a 4-headed Hydra. The extra damage increase goes up like not very much after that. So overall, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Like with the Incinerate builds, you generally pretty much want to just stick with the Incinerate. So we try and get the serpent to spawn. Where are you, little serpent? Oh, looks like there's already an event going on here. See if we can get that little snake to spawn. As you can see, it's not the greatest one in the world, like it hasn't spawned already. It amounts to like a slight DPS increase, but nothing super duper duper crazy. I don't think it's even spawned yet, has it? The little serpent. It's not going to spawn for us. Let me just check if I've got it actually equipped. Yep, it's equipped. Every 20 seconds, a serpent spawns and it incinerates enemies for 6 seconds. It's just not wanting to spawn. Oh, there it is. That's the little serpent. So it spawns even when you're not attacking stuff. So yeah, just every flat 20 seconds on a thing that you can't see. It's not super duper amazing. That's why I'm not really that bothered to showcase it, because I wasn't really fully sure honestly how it was spawning anyway when I was playing, when I was testing this build out. Didn't see it spawn when we were on the world event either though. It's a very strange one. I don't know if it's bugged or if it needs buffing or exactly what, if I'm completely honest. Yeah, actually it's pretty damn terrible. It's probably the worst actually as Spell Huntsman. Maybe don't even bother taking this actually now in hindsight. Honestly, maybe the Firebolt enhancement actually would probably be better. Just trying to think here. Yeah, so Firebolt enhancement, you're going to get direct damage from skills applies up to an extra 108 burning damage over 8 seconds. So it's around about an extra 15-ish damage per second, which is okay. So let's see if this works. It's kind of impossible to tell if that's actually applying to off Incinerate or not. Oh, the burning damage from Firebolt, maybe it only applies directly from Firebolt, but that does, the extra burn on the Firebolt itself is quite considerable. Yeah, you can see like the burn damage like on this is just, it's quite huge. Let me take it off and then see the difference. If I can find some mobs. No, we're entering into an area where we're not allowed into. Sorry about this, guys. I did test out everything on this build, but forgot the spell enhancement things. I wish it would kind of make it more obvious when you're running around without one on. It's literally one of the things that I forgot about in the equation. It's kind of a little bit unprofessional of me doing this, but... burn damage... When it says burn damage from direct skills, it's actually impossible to tell how this is actually applying. I know it's not on right now, but it's We're gonna have to just take its word from it that you were doing extra burn damage from doing direct abilities, which I'm assuming includes like Incinerate rather than things like Firewall. Sorry, I'm no more use on that front. I mean, you do have kind of like, if you are playing hardcore and you are worried about dying, you do have the Flame Shield augment where it's like, it saves you from taking fatal damage once every 2 minutes, which is honestly, in terms of a hardcore character, is almost invaluable. If you're particularly on higher difficulty levels, I can definitely see that being more of an issue. But yeah, that's the Incinerate build. Once we get more mana regeneration, and with perfect kind of legendaries in terms of like the standing still and doing more damage and things like that, I can definitely see this being a very chill way just to run through stuff and just hold right click and just burn everything down. But anyway, all the best. Sorry once again about the mess up on the spell augmentation, but yeah, hopefully you don't forget to use yours either when you hit level 15. But overall, in terms of ranking, I think Fire is lowest out of the three, Frost being number 1 and Lightning number 2. You can see all the other builds that I've done underneath in the description down below. All the best and take care, and hope you enjoyed Diablo if you're playing. Bye.